Hello and welcome to The Deep Dive. I'm Abby Madsen. We've spent 2 episodes addressing civil discourse on various personal levels. Today we turn our attention to how the state addresses this issue. The Minnesota Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution, which helps local officials effectively work together, is planning the inaugural Bridge Building Network Conference in April. The Bridge Building Network started in 2023 to aid cross-sector collaboration within the community. Today, I am joined by OCDR's Director Katie Pratt and Assistant Director Jessica Chirac to discuss their work with the government and how citizens can use the office's practices in their daily lives. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to be here.
Jessica, what do you hope to achieve during the April conference?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm really interested in connecting organizations and practitioners who usually would not intersect. So we have people from the media, from restorative justice, mediation, from research, youth development. So we have people from so many different sectors who will be attending in person. So they'll have a chance to sit at tables together, learn about each other, and maybe even collaborate in the future and partner on projects.
And Katie, what ideas are shared in the Bridge Building Network that help community members learn civility in political conflicts?
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas out there. So broadly, I think across Minnesota, we're seeing that in various sectors, people are saying, boy, our world feels more divided than we think it needs to be, and there's more room and opportunity for finding common ground. And we're also finding that people do that in a lot of different ways. So some people work on interfaith dialogue, understanding each other across faith. Some people work on political bipartisanship. So how do we work across the aisle? But we aren't all having the same conversations in the same space. So we're hoping they exchange best practices, tips, tricks. How do we reach more parts of the state and parts of Minnesota so that everywhere in the state people have a model and see this type of bridge building in practice?
And Jessica, civic education is one of the values you guys highlight in the Bridge Building Network. How does this topic contribute to all citizens, specifically like younger generation who are striving to see that change in their community?
That's a great question. I think there's a real opportunity for students to take what they're learning in the classroom about how government works, and hopefully they're getting a really good education in civics in K-12 and colleges. There's an opportunity to take that knowledge and then practice the skills, which are very transferable skills. So for example, there's an organization called Civic Bridgers, and they have a fellows program, and the fellows will go into communities to help them solve very specific problems, but use bridge building skills to do that. So facilitating discussions, civil discussions, and really helping, if it's a conflict type situation, bring the temperature down and help people understand each other's different views. So I think there's, as long as young people are getting the content knowledge in the classroom, they can then go out and practice through these bridge building organizations, which is an exciting opportunity, I think.
Can I add to
Yeah,
that
of
too?
course.
Yeah, I mean, young people, all of us, but especially young people, are asking questions about how do they want to make a difference in the world? What kind of world do we want to live in, and how do we want to shape that? And I think we see with young people, they're hungry for not just living in the models that sort of current leaders are in, but saying maybe there's a way to do this differently. Maybe there's a way to have politics be different than it is right now. And so they're asking those questions, and I think being involved in the bridge building space, they get to practice skills and see, what is my mark in the world? What's my pathway?
Katie, collaborative problem solving is a systematic approach that the OCDR implements with a goal of long-term resolutions. How do you empower community groups to sustain this goal?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're working on a collaborative problem-solving project, these are oftentimes complex and complicated issues. Oftentimes the parties involved, they're kind of stuck. They're at impasse. They're saying, we don't know a clear pathway to resolve this issue and get through it. And so one of the fundamental things we do with everybody involved is to give them some tools and some foundational knowledge coming in about how to work through complex issues. That helps level the playing field. So whether you're coming in as a community advocate or a legislator or a content area expert to be able to sit at the table and say, I'm going to learn the skills to be able to influence this complex issue effectively. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is we always talk about what is the realistic implementation. We can have all the great resolution ideas that we want, but if we don't have a pathway to get them built in the world and implemented, then the work doesn't go anywhere. So we talk, throughout our collaborative problem-solving processes about that. What comes next? Where are we going to land this? How do we implement these ideas?
And your office supports the Minnesota Civility Caucus, which is made up of volunteer legislators across parties and is designed to build relationships. And Jessica, I know you organize the events for the Civility Caucus. Yeah. What do these events look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So these can be anything from informal lunches to actually happy hours to there's a presentation from a speaker that really speaks to people across the aisle. So it could be on leadership skills, negotiation skills. We have one that's kind of fun that's coming up where we'll have legislators who went through the Minnesota Legislative Exchange Program through the Citizens League talk to other legislators about what it was like visiting a legislator from across the aisle in their district and finding out about the issues that affect them. So, so far, legislators are finding a lot of shared common ground by doing these site visits, and so we're excited to have them talk to more legislators about their experience.
Interesting, cool.
Yeah.
And you both started working with OCDR in 2022. Katie, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen through your work with the government?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the themes we're hearing a lot is that the world feels challenging right now. We talk to a lot of people who have been longtime public servants, either they're staff members, they're elected officials, nonpartisan local government folks, and they're saying, things feel different. Maybe 10 years ago, a difficult issue, you started with a conversation and now people feel like they're going from 0 to 60 and things feel tense, and we can have a lot of dialogue, and we do in our office, and also look at research about why that might be. Is that just anecdotal, or is that really a trend in the world? So I think we spend a lot of time as an office thinking about how do we help people who are in the public sector navigate those challenges? How do we help them understand this particular historic moment that we're in, and what might be the new challenges they face in their communities, in their elected office, in their staff role, and give them, again, those skills and tools to get through it.
And Jessica, have you seen any changes in your role specifically?
Over 3 years, it's maybe a little hard to say in terms of trends, but I would say government working with community, because government tends to be very transparent, community can and should demand things from government when they need more information. I do think this emotional content, though, layered on top of that dynamic process between community and government can be challenging, especially for people working on the front line, answering calls, responding to constituents. So I think just helping people understand the de-escalation skills that they can use to really serve constituents best and clients and customers best is really important.
And Jessica, we saw what happens when conflict isn't resolved effectively in the record-breaking 43-day federal government shutdown. How does the OCDR prevent this kind of division at the state level?
Yeah, well, one of the things, you said Jessica, but
sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, one of the things we do is we try to work upstream of conflict. So we try to say, when you're in the middle, when something is going on, when there's a government shutdown, people tend to be very escalated, and it can be hard to find your way out. So if we can work upstream, and that's where like the Civility Caucus comes in handy, if you have those relationships built and that shared understanding built before the hard decision is there, you will be able to navigate it better. So that's one of the ways that we do it. And then we try to help people when they are stuck and they're in a conflict, whether it's a shutdown or another difficult decision where they're at an impasse, is to be able to help them manage the emotions that are going on. We're humans. These are emotional situations. Can we find ways to get clarity in those difficult moments? And we all need those places where we can process and reflect on what are the wisest and best outcomes we can make in what are oftentimes very difficult decision-making times.
And the death of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman in June was described by prosecutors as a political assassination, according to the AP, and Senator Hoffman was also shot that day. Katie, as the director of OCDR, how does your work help prevent incivility from escalating into violence and a threat to legislators' physical security?
Yeah, absolutely. So one is we do like to look at research and look at data on political violence and track those trends so that we can help people in elected office see that there are connections, that what you say as an elected official and your rhetoric can contribute to trends in political violence, that this has real consequences in the world. So one is to give information and good information and trusted information to people. The other thing is giving these skills of collaborative problem solving to say it is, oftentimes when people talk about collaboration, they assume that means giving up things that are core and important to you. And what we try to do is explain that no, collaboration is about looking at your beliefs and your values through a different lens and coming to, again, the wisest and best outcomes rather than, jumping to conclusions, making assumptions. And so we try to give other pathways to people to get very important needs met and very important dialogues happening.
And in Senator John Hoffman's first appearance after the attacks, he used the words governance over grievance. Jessica, in your experience, what do these words look like in practice?
Yeah. I would say it's really important for everybody involved in any kind of government role to recognize when they are becoming polarized themselves. I know you had Bill Doherty on an earlier show, and they have a depolarizing self, Braver Angels program. I think we all have control over ourselves. There's a lot we don't have control over. So if we can recognize when we're using polarized rhetoric, we can scale ourselves back and try to make our statements more factual, more in line with trying to create consensus, where the goal is consensus. It isn't to be right. And so that's what we do in training. That's what we do when we're doing collaborative problem-solving processes. We're always talking about everybody gets to have an opinion. That's okay. You don't have to give up your needs, your beliefs, your deep values, but you do have to be careful about the way that you speak, especially publicly. So I think that's really important, that we each have control over ourselves and what we say.
And Katie, what actions can students take to foster better civil discourse within their own community or across political divides?
Yeah, well, where do I start? There's so much. Well, first of all, is get involved. Minnesota is home to a wealth of extraordinary organizations that are in some way, shape, or form trying to build these skill sets around bridge building, civil discourse, dialogue. So whatever as a student, whatever your sub-interest is, there's probably a group that aligns with that. So that'd be one thing, is find a way to get involved. The other thing is get some skill sets. We have a great toolkit on our website where people can go and just read and look at guides. Increasingly there's videos and there's training out there. So have some fundamental. Students, no matter where they're going to be in the world, are going to experience conflict. That's one thing we talk about in our work, is that conflict is normal. It's a natural human part of the world. In fact, the world would be a very boring place if we had no conflict. But as students from K-12 all the way up, we don't necessarily learn the skill sets for navigating conflict effectively. And you're going to need that no matter where you are. So I would hope that all students find some avenue to learn those skills and to begin to practice them. You can practice them with your friends, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Practice it with your family. We're heading into the holiday weekend. It's a great time to practice those bridge building conversations where you try to understand and be curious about people in a way that's different.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, you guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Follow along at thecrest.news and follow us on social media at The Crest News for more stories from your campus community. With Katie Pratt and Jessica Chirac, I'm Abby Madsen, and we'll see you next time we deep dive.